Hello everyone and welcome to Eduonix's Basic Excel course. In this lecture we're going to be covering printing worksheets. Printing worksheets is a very important part of any workflow, and worksheets aren't the most printer-friendly documents out there. This is due to the large number of columns and rows that a typical worksheet contains. How do you put all of this on paper, and how do you make it look good? And how do you make sure that your audience can actually read it and understand the data that you're trying to present to them? We'll answer all of these questions in this lecture. Let's get started. First off, I want to draw your attention to these dashed lines over here in the center of the screen. And you can see these same lines going horizontally down here, and you can see more of these lines as you scroll through your worksheet. These lines represent page breaks. What that means is that Excel will print each box contained within these lines on one page. And as you can see, our data comprises of many pages. This data has 17 columns and about 650 rows, approximately. How do we put it all in a way that it makes sense to whoever we give it to? Let's check out Print Preview without any settings and see what that would look like. As you can see, there's 66 pages, and it only shows the first 4 columns or first 5 columns out of the 17 columns you want to print. And as you go through, it just goes down the rows for the same columns. There are no column headers up here. All of this space is wasted, and at this page there's really no way of knowing what came before it, what came after it, or what data you're looking at, since it has no column names. We want to fix all of that and make it look pretty. So let's get started. First off, we want to make sure that the column names appear on every single page. And in order to do that, we should go back to our spreadsheet, and we can go into our page layout tab in the ribbon over here, and we go into print titles. Now in print titles, we can do a few different things. We can first set the print area. We can set which rows we want repeated at the top, which columns you want to have repeated at the left, and we have various other options such as grid lines, black and white. Draft quality will use less ink as compared to normal quality, and this is good for saving ink, and also if this printout is just meant to be a draft. Grid lines, of course, will put the grid lines on the printouts. If you remember from our print preview, there are no grid lines on here. It's just white in the background. But let's go ahead and put in the rows we want repeated at the top. So we want the data to show title repeated, as well as the first row, which contains all the column names, to be repeated. In the print area, maybe we don't want to print the entire worksheet. Let's just print a few columns. So we go from this column down to location within facility. And we want this to go all the way down to the bottom of the sheet. So that includes all the rows. So let's just scroll down quickly and select everything we want. Printed. We go down here, select this, and we go all the way up to location within facility. So as you can see, it's selected columns A through I, rows 1 through 740. And that's exactly what we want, because I is location within facility, 740 is the last data point. So we hit OK. So now I want to draw your attention to the fact that these dashed lines do not extend beyond location within facility. See, this horizontal line does not extend beyond location within facility, because this part of the spreadsheet will not be printed. and that is by choice. So let's go take a look at our print preview and see if it looks any better. Well, as you scroll down the different pages, the column names appear on every single page, which is very good, which is exactly what we wanted to do. But now, again, it is only printing the first 4 columns on a sheet, and it will print the last 3 columns. If you go to one of the later sheets, it's printing only the last 3 columns. What we want to do is have all of the columns printed on the same page so that we know which data point, so we can see the data point in its entirety on one line. In order to do that, we need to use scaling options. Easy way to get to scaling options is right here. Currently there's no scaling, but what we want is fit all columns on one page. You could also fit all rows on one page or fit the entire worksheet on one page. But in this case, we just want fit all columns on one page. So now it has reduced the size of everything on the page, but it has fit all of the columns all the way to location within facility. But we see that there is some wasted space on the top and at the sides and the bottom. We should probably do something about that so we can increase the size of the text while reducing the size of the wasted empty space. So let's start addressing one problem at a time. Let's first address the problem of the wasted space. To do that, we can go into the margins, because it is the margins we want to change. So over here, we have normal margins. We can try to use narrow margins. And it does decrease the size of the margins on the sides, but not on the top and the bottom. And the reason for that can be seen over here. If you take a look at the normal margins, the top and bottom margin are 0.75 and the left and right are 0.7 and 0.3. Over here, the top and bottom margins are 0.75 again, while the left and right margins have been reduced to 0.25. So maybe we can reduce these margins as well. Let's try going into the custom margins dialog box and reduce this from 0.75 to 0.25, just like on the sides. And voila. Now we're using much more of the page than we were before. Although you do want to make sure that you don't set these numbers to 0, because your printer might not be able to handle the printing on the very edges of the page very well. Some printers might even have trouble with the 0.25 margins, so you want to give it a shot with just printing one page and see if it prints properly or not. And if it doesn't, you go back and change the margins and make sure that your printer can handle the margins that you're trying to print. Now the other problem we had was the fact that we don't know which page we are on if these pages get mixed up. So we should probably add a page number. In order to do that, we can go back to our worksheet, and in the Insert tab over here, we go to the Header and Footer dialog box. So in the footer, we should add the page number. There are multiple different types of footers that we can add, and we can also specify a custom footer. In this case, though, page 1 of question mark will be the one we'd want. The question mark just stands for however many pages you have in your worksheet. We can go into the custom headers, and let's try and add Eduonix and Excel. And then we hit OK. So let's go back to File, back to the Print dialog box. Now you can see that the the Eduonix logo is being, or Eduonix word is being covered by data to show, whereas the page numbers are being covered by the data at the bottom. Now we need to fix this because we have clearly an overlapping header. We clearly have the data overlapping the headers and the footers. One way to do that is we go into custom margins and we change the header and footer margin. As you can see, at the top margin is 0.25, whereas the header margin is 0.3. That means the top margin is 0.25 inches away, whereas the header margin is 0.3 inches away from the top. Let's change both of them to 0.15 and see if that makes things better. Right, now we have both the headers and the footers visible and not covered by the data. So that is very good. That is exactly what we wanted, but they're still pretty close to the data. Let's see if we can make it a bit farther away. We go back into custom margins, and from 0.15, let's change that to 0.1.